Oh, thank you very much.
No audio.
Show adjustment.
Good.
That's probably, yeah. Anyway, so I welcome Luke here. Just to remind you that the Bagel Bards meet at 9 a.m., but you can come anytime in Davis Square in Somerville at the All Ball and Pan. Welcome all writers and people who are interested in the writing life and just, sit around. We're an unpretentious bunch. We talk about anything, joke around. So it's a real nice time. Come have a bagel, croissant, or whatever. And Jared Smith, who is on the board of the New York Quarterly, a published poet and a very eclectic writer, will be at the Out of the Blue Gallery, 106 Prospect Street, July 28th at 8 p.m. with an open mic, and I hope you'll be there. It's only a $4 donation. Buy a few books. He's coming in from the Midwest. So.
He's a terrific poet, too, as you know. We heard him at Bunker Hill earlier this year.
Yeah,
wonderful poet. I couldn't recommend somebody more. And I'm not really that big a fan of a lot of poets.
That's true. You're really...
But Jared is something special.
Luke Salisbury, our guest today, is a professor of English at Bunker Hill Community College in Boston. He's the author of a number of fiction and nonfiction titles, including The Answer is Baseball, which was Time Books, 1989, The Cleveland Indian, that's just been republished, reprinted, from the Smith.
Yep, and Black Heron Press in Seattle reprinted it.
And Hollywood and Sunset, that I had the pleasure to read and review and interview Luke about in the now-defunct Middlesex Beat. His writing has appeared in such publications of note as the Boston Globe, Plowshares, Cooperstown Review, Pulp Smith, and others. Salisbury received, I should say the Wilderness House Literary.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes, sir.
And he's a member of the Bagel Bards also.
I am.
And Salisbury received his MA in Creative Writing from Boston University and lives in Chelsea with his wife and sometimes son, who's, he's in college and back and forth, so. Well, thanks, Luke. I know we're going to start off. I was going to ask you, you said in the introduction on your website, which I was reading, that the dawn of Elvis, the Beatles liberated you from the button-down, all-boys purgatory prep school, which you grew up in. Now, who are the authors that, quote-unquote, liberated you as a writer when you were coming of age?
Well, I'll tell you, I went away to a boys' school when I was 14.
Yeah.
I had not been a big star with girls in 7th and 8th grade either. So I just felt I was isolated on an island I was never going to get off. And there were three things that kept one's soul together: rock and roll, literature, and baseball.
Okay.
Without a question. And I can remember my life was changed, saved or ruined, depending, when I read The Great Gatsby when I was 17, because I've never wanted to do anything but write a book that good. I never will, maybe no one else will, that explains, even just in the voice on the first page, the whole world you came from, its pressures, its nuances, its mystery. And Faulkner would be the other one. Mm-hmm. Because there's something about being a teenager, you read something, you can barely understand it, you know it's over your head, but by God, you know this is where you want to be.
But were there any of the 60s, I mean, you were talking about the era, the milieu, the zeitgeist there, I mean...
I got that from rock and roll. I was seriously...
Not from literature?
Well, I was not a Jack Kerouac person. I was not reading that stuff as it was being done. Later in the 60s, when I really needed to be on an island protected from my own demons and the demons that were everywhere, Nabokov became virtually an obsession. I was traveling around Europe in the summer of 1968, buying the paperbacks at the kiosks and the railroad stations like the Eye and Penin, and it was funny because his stuff was on the stands then. I mean, I'm a person that's always needed the alternative worlds, baseball, rock and roll. I mean, I'd love to name a bunch of 60s poets, but none of them were as important to me as the Rolling Stones.
Okay. All right. All right. So it was rock and roll.
Yes.
And
what I consider to be classic literature, I always, I read slowly. I'm still working on the classics. But in the mid-'60s, I spent a long time reading Tom Jones and Tristram Shandy. I would urge others to do so.
Okay.
There's a lot out there to read.
There is.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
That's a little time.
Well, time's running out.
Yeah.
The hourglass.
Now, but did you, you don't have to answer this, but did you engage in any of the excesses of the era?
Hey, as many as I could.
Uh-huh.
But there were three things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Political revolution, which I thought was bullshit because I didn't see anyone actually going out and fighting.
Mm-hmm.
The drug revolution.
Well, if you carry picture of Chairman Mao, you ain't gonna make it.
That's right. That's right. The second would be the drug revolution. Fortunately, my favorite drug is alcohol. I always thought I was wrapped a little too tight to do the heavy-duty stuff and never much liked marijuana.
So kids?
That's right. Drink. Don't do the other stuff. Then there was the sexual revolution. It was a wonderful time to be a young man. I'm not so sure it was wonderful to be a young woman then. I'm talking about the real 60s, the middle and late 60s, not the stuff that's come to us post Easy Rider and the movies and the whole. I mean, Love and Peace. That's bullshit. It was about.
No cursing.
Excuse me. That was marred. You know, it was about resistance. Resisting authority, whether it was be the draft or doing what people told you to do or what they told you not to do. It was an interesting time. As I said, perhaps more summed up by the Rolling Stones.
Well, as they
than
say,
Bob
if you
Dylan.
remembered it, you weren't there.
Well, I don't know about that. I do remember it, and I was there. And I think that more has to do with the drug world.
Right.
Though I believe the gentleman that said that caught crabs and herpes then that he still has. That's Robin Williams, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
You wrote two novels about that dealt with the assassination. In the 70s, one was Blue Eden, right? Was that the same?
Well, Blue Eden comes later. I wrote a couple. It's 3 tales with J. Edgar Hoover in them, and the last one is about the Kennedy assassination.
And a lot of people are obsessed with Kennedy. In fact, supposedly the definitive book has come out by the guy who did the Helter Skelter.
What a jerk! What a jerk!
Well, you don't have a strong opinion, but what I was going to say. What's your view on the Kennedy assassination?
I'll tell you my view.
And why do you have a fascination with assassinations?
Because I, in the late 60s, would sit around trying to think of the novels that I'd like to write.
Right.
And as all the stuff, starting with Rush to Judgment and the sense that something's wrong here, I was just consumed with the idea that this is like Moby Dick. The biggest thing in the world happens in front of your face. You don't know what it is. People don't know what it is. Their subtext, their stories strike through the mask. This is raw material. And I'll tell you, I couldn't get a handle on it. I tried with 2 of them, early in the 70s, late in the 70s. And it was disappointing because by the 80s, the big-time writers, Mailer, DeLillo, everybody was taking a crack at it. But it is a labyrinth. You get into it, you can't get out because there's story after story. And then you become interested in the phenomena of being obsessed with something like that. And when I stopped writing about the Kennedy assassination about 1980 and moved into baseball, it was liberating.
So who killed Kennedy?
I have no idea.
You don't have an idea?
I have no idea. If Oswald was part of it with that rifle they couldn't hit a bull's ass with a shovel with, maybe. But he certainly wasn't alone. He certainly didn't get there alone. How did he get back from the Soviet Union and not be charged with treason after he'd given up supposed secrets? Who was Lee Harvey Oswald? Who are any of us, Doug? I'll never believe it.
Did you read Libra by DeLillo?
I couldn't read this stuff after I had tried to write about it.
It was a great book.
Well, I've got it. I bought it as soon as it came out.
Okay.
And it's fascinating, but it's like drugs. Stay away from it.
Yeah, you can get.
You get way in, and you're going to have to detox to get out of it.
Well, isn't the saying is if you stare at the abyss too long, the abyss stares back at you.
The abyss shoots you.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, a recent book that I read, an excellent book, I really liked it. It was Hollywood and Sunset. Deals with the filmmaker D.W. Griffith. And you refer to Griffith and others of his ilk as sellers of light. What are novelists sellers of?
Wow. Inner light. All sorts of light. Why I got so interested in Griffith was I think, God forbid, I don't like this, but I think our culture went from word to visual. And I think it happened.
You teach film.
At this, I do. Right at this very moment, that is the set
Hollywood
of
and
intolerance.
Sunset, available at www.lukesalisbury.com.
Yep, or from Shambling Gate. And D.W. Griffith is this monumental filmmaker.
For people who don't know, what did he do?
He invented Hollywood, basically.
Yeah.
He did everything with the movie, with the 2-dimensional movie, probably that can be done. And he did it in the most racist movie ever made, Birth of a Nation. What could be more American story than someone that invents something, it makes more money than they could count, and it takes advantage, or unconsciously or otherwise, of racism. I mean, Griffith it is the most racist movie ever made. Interestingly enough, when it made more money than God, more money than they could count, junk man in my town of Chelsea, Massachusetts, owned 2 movie theaters. He skimmed $350,000 that he was supposed to give to Griffith and didn't, because Griffith had no national distribution system. Decided this looked like a good way to make money, moved to Los Angeles. His name was Louis B. Mayer. I mean, it was a time when the technology...
Mayer was born in Chelsea.
He was actually born in Russia.
But he came to Chelsea.
By way of Newfoundland, and his father had a salvage junk business. I believe Louis B. was down in the hard hat in Boston Harbor. He was physically a tough guy.
Yeah.
And I guess he was pretty tough business-wise,
Yeah.
too, as those guys were. So
and
we
you portrayed him that way. Yeah.
I mean, all of those guys, so you have this frontier of movies. What happens when America reaches the Pacific Ocean? We invent the dream factory, Hollywood. What's more American than that? And so I became very interested in Griffith. And of
Well,
course,
how does this sensibility, the American sensibility, differ from European, or would you say just...
well, that's interesting. We got to keep moving.
Yeah.
We never stop. The past is used up. I mean, as you know, this book starts with a European dressed as Jesus Christ driving a Model T trying to pick up women. There's a very specific kind of American...
And that was a true character.
Oh, yeah, an Englishman named Howard Gay. But, you know, there's a fabulous line of Jack Kerouac's.
What's that?
Not the biggest liar, not the biggest fighter can find the center of Saturday night in America. Where is the center of either Saturday night or America? That's something that's fascinated me forever. In the Cleveland Indian, the main character thinks it's baseball and gets involved with a baseball team and involved with this great player who happens to be the first Native American to play. Finds out that when you're involved in baseball and trying to own it, you've lost the fantasy poetry part of it, or at least they're different. And you can see, as you started talking about my obsession with the Kennedy assassination, it goes from baseball to movies, assassination. I'm always looking for alternative
I mean, does
worlds.
obsession help being
Who the hell is
as a
willing
writer?
to sit and write a novel, and then another novel, and then another novel, and they don't get published, and then finally you get one published? The only person that reads it is Doug Holder and reviews it, but you keep doing it. It's a madness.
Well, someone must have read the book. It won an award.
Oh, yeah, it won a number of awards. A few people have read. But, I mean, to sit, poets, God bless them, can write a poem in 5 minutes or 5 years. But there's no way to write a novel quickly. You have to sit there alone.
A novella, maybe.
Someone has to support you, or you're supporting yourself by teaching, as many of us do, and writing on the weekends and during the summer. And then when it's done, almost no one pays attention to it. But you go back and do it again. So yes, obsession helps. The problem is just having the obsession doesn't mean A, God will give you success, or B, you have that much talent.
Yeah.
But it makes life worth living.
That's the point. It does make life worth living.
It makes life worth living. So yes, I write out of obsessions.
Now, many writers, at least, when they are starting out, work a variety of odd jobs to make ends meet, and to give them time to write. You worked as a security guard for many years. And how did that fit into your writing life, and did it take its toll?
While I was a security guard, I read both Gravity's Rainbow and The Remembrance of Things Past.
Wow.
Probably the two most impressive things.
A lot of
about
people
me.
went by your post. You didn't even know it.
You get a point where nobody's
Where did you work
around.
as a security
I worked out at Polaroid. I had a nice shift up until at night and
3
stuff.
to 11 or 11 to 7?
Well, it was even shorter. Than that'd be like 4 to 8 or 9 or something. But you could read. It's a little hard to write with stuff around, but you could do a little bit of that. But the question is, how do you survive if you're a writer and you didn't become famous right away?
Right.
And you're not in the bosom of some university. If you're not just teaching in a college, it's hard. William Faulkner said the best job for a writer, do you know what that is, Doug?
What?
Play the piano in a bordello. Because the hours are good and there's lots of interesting company around.
Good money.
I have a feeling it sounds better than it would
So
be.
you supported yourself doing that?
Well, I had many jobs and not jobs through the 70s. Then I worked for the welfare department for a while, and then was very lucky to get the
Bronx,
job. That was to get a draft deferment way back. That was in 1969. And then I worked another year for the local school board in the Bronx. That's a whole other story. Which is good when there was a draft that forced people to do things they never would have done otherwise.
So was it a good experience? It was actually helped you in your writing?
Well, that was a very powerful experience.
Well, do you think it was a better experience being a security guard rather than teaching?
Teaching, but I wouldn't want to.
You wouldn't have probably wouldn't have write. You wouldn't have been able to write.
Well, hey, They say there are only 2 reasons to teach, July and August.
Yeah. Now, you've taught at Bunker Hill Community College.
For 22 years.
For 22 years.
And that's a great job.
And how's this experience been? I just answered that for you.
Well, what's good about teaching at Bunker Hill is the average age is 30.
Right.
People come from everywhere, and they're no yuppies. This isn't BU. Kids or the older people don't think I'm an idiot because I make so little money and teach at Bunker Hill. Most of the people are there, especially the older ones, because they're trying to get some kind of skills or learn how to speak English and go somewhere. So it's a very different feel. I like it a lot. Hey, I don't think you can do better than teaching adults at a public school off a subway line in a big city. And it's not exactly the hellhole at the other end of the American class system Goodwill Hunting portrayed it to be, though there was some truth to that. And when I started, it very much was a white working class place. Now it's everybody. It's 60% people of color, as we say, and a tremendous number of people from other places
And the nursing program.
Well, the nursing program, you wait for a long time to get in because people get jobs. That's good. Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
Now, you've been published, because we're going to be going to your reading section soon, but you've been published a few times by Harry Smith,
I have.
the mythic figure in
Harry-
the,
Well,
can you tell me about your history with
Yes,
him?
I can tell you just one thing about
Well, what is he,
Harry
first of
Smith.
all, for people? Just
Harry Smith had a magazine, first called The Smith and then Pulp Smith, and he basically was a poet who published poets. But he had a magazine, oh heavens, from 1964 to about 1990, and he had a policy of trying to publish half the people in the magazine that had never been published before. Can you imagine? And I had sent him something in about 1970, and he turned it down but wrote me a letter, a kind of flippant letter. And about 5 years later, I was looking through whatever the equivalent of writer's market or poets and writers was. I noticed Harry's paying money now. So I sent him a piece of a novel I was working on. And the envelope that came back, he wrote yes on the front of it.
Right.
I mean, he discovered me. He discovered Jarrett Smith, as a matter of fact. I didn't know that until I met Jarrett. And he just was always trying to publish people that weren't published. He was part of starting COSMEP, the Small Press Association. He felt there was, lots of writing that would only be in a small press and never anywhere else. And, oh no, he's a
So you're a great supporter
man.
of the small press.
Oh, yeah. Well, as Askold Melnichuk said to me once, there wouldn't be any literature published if it weren't for the small press. Now, maybe that's not true, but there'd certainly be a lot less.
Yeah.
Hey, where do we go if we're not one of the 20 people that make a living writing novels in America or whatever and don't do something else? Where do we go?
Thank God for the small press.
Yeah, and thank God for the internet, because ultimately that's how we find each other.
Now, your book, Cleveland Indian, is being
Yes,
re-released.
here it is. Nice looking
And again,
book.
that's at Luke Salisbury, LucSalisbur.com, BURY.com.
Right.
And you can get it on Amazon too.
Yeah, this you can get on Amazon.
And you've written extensively about baseball. And what is it about the game and that, it mimics life, the stages of life. It has a lot of metaphors attached to
Listen, I'm from Long Island.
Yeah.
And the great thing about being Long Island is, of course, you tried to play sports all the time, whether you were good or not that good, but you could get a tremendous amount of respect for knowing about sports. My wife was amazed. She's from the Midwest, that when she came east, there were people that were intellectuals that liked sports. You didn't have to be a jock to know a whole lot about sports. Baseball is that alternative world. We go in and come back again. It saves us from
Well, I
this
was a
thing.
baseball
Saves
freak
us.
myself, and I used to have statistical games that I
Sure.
played for hours on end.
Oh, God.
Jack Kerouac himself developed a very sophisticated...
His own, before APBA and rotisserie and all that. Oh, yeah.
Because, it has a certain certainty to it. You have the averages, the strikeouts,
Well, it has form. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Right. It makes sense. Life doesn't make sense
Well,
with baseball.
right. That's why we have games. They have rules. That's why we have art. In games, they have rules.
Yeah.
The games may be simpler, but they get better closure.
Right.
And
Well, I want to give you some time to read from
Well,
where you got 10 minutes, so read from whatever you
I
want.
like to both. It's interesting because the narrator of the Cleveland Indian is the same as the narrator of Hollywood and Sunset. But the Cleveland Indian, he's young. It's when he's interested in baseball. It's how he meets his wife, who he's having problems with in the other book. I just want to read a little bit from the beginning of this.
Okay.
This is the beginning of the Cleveland Indian. They're all dead now. The Indian, Ned Phillips, Frank Ember, and probably Annie too, though she may be in San Francisco. I have what I said I wanted, a ball club. It's not a big league club, but we're on our way to winning the Eastern League, and I own the club. I have what I want, but my friends are dead. Like most men, I'm guilty and not guilty. It's been 10 years since King Saturday, a Penobscot Indian, appeared in uniform for the Cleveland Spiders and tore up the National League for half a season. Saturday had the most talent any baseball man had ever seen. John McGraw of Baltimore said so. So did Frank Ember, the Spider third base coach, and neither was easy to impress. King Saturday disappeared a week after the 4th of July in 1898. I was a lawyer for the Spiders. The club gave me a check for $10,000 and sent me to find him. It would have been better for both of us if I hadn't. I was 27 that summer, full of ambition, wild to get my hands on a ball club, a bit of a dandy, and hell-bent on being as great a friend to King Saturday as a self-absorbed, hero-worshipping Harvard lawyer could be. And then the second chapter starts out. He's in Western Pennsylvania. The club has sent him to follow the Indian who's on an exhibition tour. I'll just read a very little of this. He was my friend. He was my friend from the night I met him in August '97 until that wretchedly cold day in '99 when he disappeared for the last time. By the calendar, that's only a year and a half, but time swirled or stood still around the Indian in a way it doesn't around other men. I knew Saturday for a summer, tracked him through the fall, and now it seems must try to understand him forever. I met King Saturday in a hotel room in Hooper, Pennsylvania, a little after midnight on August 11th, 1897. He was touring with Ned Phillips, Eastern Collegiate All-Stars, and had signed with the Cleveland Spiders. I was supposed to accompany him to Toledo, where Saturday was going to finish the association season and join the Spiders in September. And it turns out the Indian is out cold from drinking or appearing to be drinking. I'm going to read you the last paragraph of this chapter, which is a description of his face. And he also says about, because he's going to be siding with the Indian against these Harvard guys who are running this tour. Perhaps I sensed that one friendship and part of my life was ending, but I may be reading too much into the past. I know I stared at the man on the bed. His face was remarkably ugly and remarkably handsome. I'd never seen one like it. Even in the shadows, I saw the deep eye sockets, the big nose, a huge nose, big ears, and a big, aggressively angular chin. The mouth was big, too. Everything about that face seemed to jump out, yet it also held a deep oriental calm. Saturday's face, even in shadow, was a mixture of violence and indifference, cunning and oblivion. Whatever character was to be read there, whether savage or angel, was in signs I couldn't decode. And he's involved with this sort of mythical, violent athlete. And now, in middle age, at the age of 44, we pick up Henry again. He's in Hollywood, about to deal with D.W. Griffith, who we were talking about. And it's interesting because I hadn't...
You never mentioned his age in the book, at least I missed it.
Well, that you could probably figure it out from page 2 because he said he graduated from Harvard in '94, and we know this book is taking place in 1916.
I missed that.
But 44 is an interesting age.
Why?
It's an age in which your whole life changes according to the Navajo Indians. It's going to go in a different direction. It's pretty much, very much the middle of it. So this is the same, ostensibly the same voice. Well, it's not the same voice because he's not 27 years old. He's 44. And I'm just going to read the beginning of this. This is on April 1st, that's not insignificant, of 1916. Head high, eyes scanning the hills, Jesus Christ drove Henry Ford's Universal car out of the east. I squinted. It was Howard Gay, the English actor who played Robert E. Lee in Birth of a Nation and Christ in D.W. Griffith's new motion picture. I'd heard Gay liked to drive his Model T around Los Angeles looking for women while dressed in Christ regalia. Another day, the Wonder of the Ages driving the Wonder of the Age down Sunset Boulevard would have made me laugh. Today I was numb. An hour ago, my wife told me she was having an affair. I said, I'll forgive you. She said, I don't want to be forgiven. I want to leave. I walked through the shroud-like, mysterious Los Angeles dawn. Mist hung like phantoms, strange, ghostly, pale. Call it angels at your own risk. The light looked put down from another world. I was going to interview D.W. Griffith. Trust your wife to leave on your most important day. The white figure braked, stopped, and in a posh accent said, do you require a lift? I got in. Jesus was surprised. I wasn't surprised. He sniffed. A slender hand gripped the polished wheel, and we were off, with robes and cowl billowing at 10 miles per hour. Take me to Babylon, Mr. Gay. My voice cracked. Call me Jesus. I try to stay in character. All of us could stand to be a bit more like the Nazarene. And it goes on from there.
Did you get any reaction from the Catholic Church about this?
No, I think the Catholic Church is busy with other problems.
Yeah.
I was thinking that some fundamentalist people would be after me only because they haven't read the book.
Well, that would be the best thing for your book.
Well, it's interesting because this book is about many things, but what is it like to be like Christ? Does Hollywood give us truly pagan gods and goddesses and different things? What's going on? I think the culture is really changing and fragmenting and going pagan and going visual, and all sorts of things are happening. And the light in Los Angeles is weird. It does look like ghosts coming down if you're awake at 5.
You were in Los Angeles recently.
I was.
You like it?
I always like it because I think it's fascinating. It's many cities.
Would you want to live there?
No, only because I wouldn't want to sit in traffic that long. But it is, it's not like here. It is tribe after tribe and different languages. There's no sense of the past. If you come from the East like you and I do, you show up and you think, I could run this place. I'm tough and smart. I'm from New York. Yeah, try it.
Yeah.
They have their grit and smarts and toughness, and half of them are from New York, too.
Yeah.
But it is different. And in this book, even though it's Los Angeles in 1916, I spent about 5 years almost meditating on Los Angeles. What does it mean? I'm very interested in energy and the track of energy. And in the 60s, at some point, I think the energy went from New York to Los Angeles. San Francisco was this hippie sideshow. It was nice. It has something to do with the Doors. Listen to the Doors if you want to understand Los Angeles. I didn't even like the Doors at the time. I didn't understand what they were about. L.A. Woman is a great song about Los Angeles.
I'm surprised you haven't written a book, or maybe I just missed that, about rock and roll.
Well, when I wrote The Answer is Baseball, I was looking for the best baseball question. It was initially going to be called Baseball Catechism, but I was told that Jewish salesmen at Times Books didn't know what that meant. I didn't either. I'm not Catholic. But I wanted to do a rock and roll catechism, so I could write about rock and roll as I had about baseball, nonfiction. But my editor left to become a writer.
Oh.
And I went back to writing. It takes me 5 years, 7 years to write a book.
Do you write every day?
No, I try to write 5 days a week, but I'll tell you, 2 hours of actual writing is a lot of work.
Where are you going to be reading anywhere soon?
Well, I'm going to be reading with the Bagel Bards, and I think it's October 13th at Rodney's in Central Square.
Okay.
I'm not reading any time between now and then.
Well, you may be reading at the Somerville Museum. I don't know, maybe September 27th?
Well, I think I'm going to be out of commission then. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
Hey, medical things come up.
Well, might be a good story.
But, if I can, I will.
Yeah.
Because I've read there before.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I just want to say to anybody that's watching this that's a writer, that's not famous and trying to get somewhere, for God's sake, come see the Bagel Bards. You don't have to be that isolated. You see, poets are nice to each other. Novelists hate each other because it's all a zero-sum game. It's impossible to get an agent. It's impossible to get published. And you feel like if someone else gets somewhere, you didn't get somewhere. Well, it's not like that in poetry. You don't have to be alone. You really don't.
Yeah. I don't know if there are any other. There are some novelists.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple.
Did you meet the new girl we have in there who's going to, once it graduated, be you writing?
I didn't, but unfortunately when you're young, you sort of look at, hey, if these people can't help me, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
We'll see how long she lasts.
Yeah.
But after you've done it for a while and gone through your own 100 years of solitude, that's when you need other people.
Sir,
Hey, this is wonderful.
did you like it? I'll get you
Oh,
a
we'll do
copy
it
of the
again.
tape.
We'll do it again sometime.
Sure, yeah,
This is
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
We'll find things to talk about.
Oh, yeah, well.
You know, I mean, I've got the, I'm getting close before, the surgery. I'll have the Civil War novel ready to go out and be turned down by people.
Is that a day operation? That's
Yeah, but they keep you in the hospital for 3 or 4 days, probably because of infection.
right.
And,
right.
wow.
Yeah.
I thought that said the lady from Shanghai, but it doesn't. It says load slowly and straight. That shows you where my head is.
Well, I hope that goes well for when you're going in.
Oh, the 24th of September. That's why I don't think I'll be up and about on the
No, I would-
27th.
With this thing.
As a matter of fact, probably the first thing being up and about might be the Bagel Bards at Rodney's.
Uh-huh.
We're not still being recorded, are we?
No.
Is that woman Deborah really as nuts as she appears to be?
Why? Did you speak to her?
Well, she just couldn't stop talking about her tits the other day after you were gone. And
she runs a good gallery and all that.
is that what she does?
Yeah.
She's nice enough, but she's so obsessed with herself. It's a little,
Yeah, she's got some problems.
Well, just one herself,
Yeah.
And,
Shit, this thing doesn't eject.
But
Yeah.
it didn't record.
No, I saw the thing moving.
But
Oh,
I'll
I got
tell
it on
you,
tape anyway.
if she talks about her tits too much, I'll have to introduce her to my tenant, who makes her look flat.
I can't eject the tape. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I can't eject the tape from
Oh. But this is so nice
Yeah,
that
I'm
you do
glad.
this
Yeah,
for
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Because it's fun to do. When might this be shown? I guess I don't get it anyway. 'Cause I
Yeah,
just-
but you'll get it.
Yeah, I wish I
it was
was
live now, and sometimes sometimes
Which I would watch.
Yeah.
I got tapes of me talking for 2 minutes going back to 1989 on
Oh,
TV.
okay. All right.
Back to when Chris Lydon at the 10
Wow.
o'clock news.
Oh, Jesus.
The first time I was ever on TV, I was so nervous he gave me a beta blocker.
Where's your tape?
Yeah, right in there. I was just pressing the eject, I think.
You're still,
Oh.
you're still